Hello, hello. We are ready to go. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be with you. My name is EJ White. I'm sitting in Brooklyn, New York. I'm the head of growth here over at beehiiv, and we'll be walking you through how to set up your beehiiv account successfully, get everything, all of the settings all configured and ready to go. I'm very excited. This is the first of this type of webinar that we're hosting. Looking forward to the feedback, the good, bad, and ugly. But more than anything, just really humbled and privileged that you guys showed up here this evening, ready to go, ready to learn how to start your newsletter journey. All of you, I believe, are relatively new users of beehiiv. So I want to be, if I'm not the first, I want to be somebody to welcome you to beehiiv. We also here have Tony in the background. He's going to be helping to moderate the chat while I'm going through this session. He also may be doing some other stuff in the background too, but he is here helping us make sure that everything goes super smoothly. And yeah, you're in good hands, and we're looking forward to a successful session today. Jumping into things, let me start sharing my screen. Amazing. Jumping into things today. Jumpstart your journey with beehiiv. What we are going to go through today is how to cover and basically set up your account from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, to make it as powerful, as successful as you could be getting started. Now, I don't want to overwhelm people with the large agenda. We will be recording the session. We'll send it in a link to where you can find it after this call. And if you have any Q&A questions, if you go to that link, https://beehiiv.link/Q&A, we'll be taking questions there. And then at the end, if we have time, we will be covering those. Otherwise, we can include Q&A items that we don't get to in the article that we publish with the recording. But again, all recording and resources are going to be included after the call. The deck may not be because it's very short. We have literally this screen, and then I think we go to the screen share. But if I get one person in the chat who wants us to include the deck, I will include the deck. So if you want to see the deck, we might just include it for fun anyway. So yeah, our agenda is packed, so I'm not going to spend too much more time in intro, just giving some time for more people to hop in who might be running a little bit late, but we're going to cover a couple of things. So the assumption that we're working with is that you have gone through and created your beehiiv account. You've signed up, you've signed in, you've hit the dashboard, and now you may be thinking, what next? Now, if you've taken a couple other steps from there, if you've started to write in the editor, if you've started to change the settings in your account, that's totally fine. Some of that might be a little bit of a covering new ground, but hopefully we'll cover some things that are new as we go through that process. But in order, we're going to go through writing your first post, sending your first post, configuring your newsletter settings, designing the newsletter, designing the web experience, setting up your welcome email, creating a feedback poll, setting up a subscriber survey, finding newsletters to recommend, setting up a referral program, configuring the post-subscribe experience, setting up your analytics, setting up a paid subscription, and the intro to our ad network and intro to Boosts. So if it sounds like a lot, it is. We're going to cover it. I'm not going to go through and step by step write out a whole newsletter in front of you. To set expectations, I'm going to be working from a newsletter that I set up last weekend, personal newsletter that I haven't started sending to anyone. No judgment zone, please. But this will be a very easy way to see once the settings are live and set up, what beehiiv can become and how easy it is to get it to that place. With that said, we can jump right into things. That AMA slide is for the very end. So yeah, we are good to go and switch over to the chat or to the screen share. Perfect. So the first step is I'm going to actually get into the right account. That would be helpful, right? The fit, you can see I have 1,000,001 newsletters that I've created. So this is a newsletter called The Fit. I'm going to go to thefit.beehiiv.com. This is a newsletter that I created on a lark. My girlfriend is super into vintage fashion, so she runs a vintage shop. I figured what cool thing to do, collaboratively as she's teaching me how to dress is to start a men's fashion newsletter so we can share the knowledge of how to up your style IQ with men everywhere. If I go to, so by default, when you start a beehiiv account, every beehiiv account comes with a website that you can or cannot use. You can choose not to use it if you don't want to, but we do deploy a website for every beehiiv user, so it makes it easy for users to find your subscribe forms and to get started. By default, when you don't have any posts published, it's going to be the website /subscribe is going to be where everyone lands. Once you've published that first post, then you'll be able to see the archive that we were just on. But this is basically an example of the website that I've configured using the settings. We're going to go into this, but I just wanted to start with the end in mind so you can see what we'll be going through and building today. We have this web experience to sign up, a couple little pieces of text and copy around the page, a nice background image. And then because I have a post published, we can click the button to let me read it now. And we can see the web post, cover image, headline, social share. We scroll down, some block quotes, some links. We got some columns that hold some images, some more links. We have a poll, comments, and if I had more than one post, we would have a little section of, do you want to read this next post next or whatever. So with that being said, we're going to jump into that first item that was on the agenda of writing your first post. So if I go back to the dashboard here, to get to a new post and get started, I'm going to click on this this button that says Start Writing. I can also choose some other options. I can either start from a blank draft or start from a template. I'm going to start from a blank draft for this, and I'm going to show you guys how to create a template. But if I already had the template, if I click this, it's going to show me the existing template, which it actually should already have one because I saved the template when I did my first post. But we'll start with the blank draft so we can get started, and then I'll open up the template to show how things look from there. When you hit your page for the first time, we like to think about this as your blank slate. There's so much potential sitting in front of you when you open up the editor, and we make it purposely very easy to just get started writing. We don't add a bunch of distractions in here that are going to take you away from that main experience. The big thing here is going to be your post title. And then if you want, you can add a subtitle. Very common pieces of either a blog post or a newsletter. The post title is going to correlate to the post title for the web. For email, if you are sending specifically to email, this is going to correlate with your subject line. The subtitle similarly is going to be the subtitle of the web post, and it's automatically by default going to be your preview text of your email. Now don't worry, these things are all flexible. You can change them. You're not tied to them or married to them. You can have a web post have a certain title and subtitle, and you can completely change the version that's going to go to people in email. Now, this is also a good time probably to check in with the fact that the way that beehiiv is structured is we're meant to be a content publishing platform. We specialize in newsletters, but you can also publish purely to the web. You don't have to publish your newsletters to emails. You can publish them to the web. You can publish them to emails. You can publish them to both. And it just provides flexibility as you create content that you're not tied to one content format. So if you are publishing a newsletter, say you also want to do blog content or blog style content, you can produce your blog content, publish that content only to the web, and then perhaps in your newsletter, you reference those blog posts, you link to them, and then when you publish your newsletter, you publish only to email. Now, we're going to get into those steps of what buttons you push to do each of those in a few minutes when we go through the publishing settings. But just so you have the right frame of mind, this publishing experience is the core to any kind of post type. So if you want to write a web post, if you want to write an email, you're going to start here and start the drafting process. Once you have this started, if say you're collaborating, you can add other authors, other guest authors and whatnot. But from here, we can just get started. In coding, there's like a phrase, hello world is like what people start with. So I'll just type that. So you get a little bit of pen to paper. And we have our first words typed. Now, if I go to a new line, you can see we have this prompt, type / to browse options. This is the second key point of our editor in that we have this amazing widget. We call it the widget palette or the tool palette. I don't know if anybody else aside from me calls it the widget palette, but that's what I call it, where it has all of these different options of different things you can use for your newsletter. And so this is a shortcut list to get you producing the type of content that you want to make. If you want to insert a bulleted list, you can check from there. There's also a couple different ways to get there. You can / and start typing out bulleted list and then just hit the enter button. Not anymore because I changed the tab, but you can hit enter button and it's going to turn into a bulleted list. If you also are into shortcuts, specifically for bulleted links, Control-Shift-8 on most tools is creating a bulleted list. You can just do that, but that's a little bit of an aside. But anything here you want to do, if you want to add an image, a block quote, columns, the list goes on and on. I'll let you guys read the different options here. Different types of headings, 1 through 6. These just generally correlate to smaller and smaller heading sizes, so you can get really granular with the hierarchy of your post or your email. Embeds, so these are going to let you either embed links or social media posts, or even audio if you have an audio file you want to attach to the message. If you're writing a little bit more technically, maybe you want to add some footnotes. There's ways that you can, similar to a Google Doc, you can add footnotes that are going to add the references or the sources at the bottom of the newsletter or the page. Lastly, we have our selection of premium features that if you're on our scale plan or above, you'll have access to. So if you have an ad provision to your account, you can click on the advertisement link. If you want to access the AI writer, you can click that one. We have a couple more in here. AI image, so we use images powered by OpenAI's DALL-E model, referral program, paywalls if you have a premium subscription, polls, HTML snippets. So this is if you have some custom HTML that you want to customize the look and feel of your post or newsletter with, our recommendations widget, boosts, and our RSS to send feature, which is brand new as about a week ago. So these are going to be specific if you're on the premium plan. If you're not, they're going to prompt you to upgrade if you're not. And we'll go through all of them so you guys can see what they look like before too long. Also, a good point to call out. When you start a Beehiiv account, everybody is entitled to a 30-day free trial of all of our non-monetization tools. So if you haven't yet upgraded to that trial, now is a great time to do. With that trial, you'll have access to all of these tools except for paid subscriptions, the ad network, and boosts. So those three, they're paid features, or they're monetization features, I should say. And we restrict those a little bit more to prevent spam and bad actors. But once on the actual paid plan, you're fully entitled to use those tools based on your qualifications. Say Boost is the one where we'll get into Boost later. I don't want to jump the gun. Cool. We've started our post. We've started writing. And now this is really where the magic happens. You can choose your headline. We'll do a headline 1. Welcome to the newsletter. And then maybe we want to do a headline 2, H2. This is a smaller headline. So you may think, as we're going through this process, what does this content actually look like? What is this going to look like to a user? So once you start having a little bit of content listed, what we can do is click on this preview button, and this is going to pull up a real-time preview of what the content is going to look like. So if you can see, this header text and this smaller headline looks a little bit different than what it looks like here. We have the sizing and we have the bold. We do signify that these are headlines, but the font itself is actually a little bit different than the preview. And that's going to come back in a few minutes when we talk about newsletter design. But the short of it is that we separate the design and the drafting process so that when you start to write your newsletter, you can focus fully on the presence of writing, and you don't have to worry about the little intricacies of the design and how it looks. The idea is that you set up the design one time, and then you never really have to touch the design again unless you want to tweak it and make it look better. You don't have to go in and every single time you're sending an email, go through and make the little tweaks. So there's a lot of platforms where that is actually a huge part of it. You add content and it messes up like the spacing and everything, and then you're spending more time doing the little fine tuning of all the spacing than you are actually writing your content. So our tools are very robust. They're very powerful insofar as that they really allow you to get very fine tuned with how your newsletter looks and feels. But you're not doing that at the time of when you're writing, which is a huge time saver for most users. So here on this preview screen, we have the web view enabled and we have the desktop. So this is what it's going to look like on the web and on desktop. This is very similar to what I just showed you in the screen share. So if I wanted to see what this is going to look like in an email form, I can click this email button. So this is going to show me what the subject line, this is who the sender is. This is the subject line. This is the preview text. And this is what it's going to look like in an email. Now, there's not a whole lot of content, so it's not a very pretty email right now, but you can see we have the title still included. This is when it was sent, read online, option to read on the web. We have these social share buttons still enabled, and we have the content. Subject line, preview text, sender. If we wanted to see what this is going to look like on mobile, this is just going to give you a generic view of what it's going to look like to mobile users. And then when we look at this bar up here, if you want to simulate what it's going to look like to a specific subscriber, so if you're using something like a content tag, which we'll get into in a little bit, but if you're using like a customization that's personalized in the email, for example, the user's first name, or you're running a premium newsletter and you want to show what the email is going to look like to that premium recipient, you can select a specific subscriber, and that's what's going to show up here if there was any kind of customization. So from here, we'll just cancel that out. We'll exit. We can see what the preview was. We have this right here. Going one step deeper, into these menus. So on the side here, you'll notice that when I hover over text, we have the option to do a little plus button or this little kind of 6-button menu. So each of these is going to do something separate. The plus button is going to add another element below our current one. But this little menu right here is going to contain a bunch of different settings that are going to help change the way you can interact with your newsletter. So grouping to a section is a way to group separate elements so that you can, for example, move them all together as one. So if I had like a headline and some text and I wanted to move them all together as a group, I can do that. But more importantly, grouping also helps let you style parts of your newsletter a little bit more granularly. So say I want to group a headline and some text, and I just want that specific section to have a different background color. I can group those two pieces together, and then within the visual settings, I can choose a different background color, I can choose a different text color, I can choose border, and I can choose spacing around those. So a little bit more of a power user feature. When in doubt, if you're at the beginning of your journey, don't fret. You don't necessarily need to tweak on such a fine-tuned basis, but if it is something where you have a design that you're working from that you're trying to recreate in beehiiv, this is just one further way that you can get there. The other big important part around these settings is going to be the visibility settings. So we'll use the example up here. We have these eyeballs that are next to the header and subtitle. Commonly, many users don't like to include the headline and the subtitle in the emails that they send because the headline tends to be the subject line and the preview text tends to be the preview text. As we saw before in the preview, if I look at the email, it's including the headline and the subtitle here. So to make this a little bit more user-friendly, I can actually toggle this visibility setting to only show on web by telling it to not show in email. Now, in other sections, we're going to have a little bit more granularity. We can choose to show or not show on the website, choose to show or not show in the email, and then we can decide among our free subscribers or paid subscribers whether we want to show content. This is really helpful if you have a paid newsletter where you want to show specific content only to paying users or only show it to the free users who have not yet upgraded. So a great deal of granularity there. And then from there, there's self-explanatory tools. So if you want to if you made a tweak and you want to reset it to the factory settings, you can reset the text formatting, you can duplicate something, and this is going to make a copy of it, or you can copy it to the clipboard and then paste it somewhere else in the newsletter like normal. These are the main components. What we didn't cover was comments. So if you're working with a team, if you've ever worked in Google Docs, you can add some comments. This is a comment. So now I can tag users. If I had fellow people in the chat, I can tag them in it. We can resolve it and so forth. It also is going to show up on this comment side. So just like a Google Doc, when you see the comments in the sidebar, you'll be able to work there. You can filter by ones that are open, resolved, and so forth. If you start writing a version of your newsletter and then you decide that you hate it and you decide to change it completely and you're like, wait a second, that first version was the one I actually really liked. We have a way for you to do version history. So right now, because I just created it, it's not going to have a history. But if I were to leave and then come back and make a change, we would have a version history here where I can go and say, hey, I want to change this all around and make it look very different. So I promised a second ago, I'm going to show you what this is going to look like when you have a newsletter that's more fully set up. So I'm going to use this template to create one. In this case, I added a thumbnail image. There was a little button that says add thumbnail, so I did that. I don't have any content tags set, but if I could add the one, I've made a content tag for fall 2024. It's just a way to organize posts within the editor itself or within the website. So it lets users be able to sort and filter. And then from here, you can see the content that we have. So we have a referral program widget, which we'll get into. We have the text, images, so our content block for quotes. We have a poll widget right here, images within a column, and then these links. And then we have another poll at the bottom that acts as a satisfaction poll. So within here, if I want to preview it, we can see what it's going to look like. And this is going to look just like the one that we saw before, but you can essentially look at and see what it's going to look like across different devices. And from here, we're ready to move to that next step, which is sending. So when I'm ready to send, I can hit this next button. It's going to take me to this audience view. So here I can choose who I want this message to go to. So by default, it's going to send to all free subscribers and show to all free users on the web. However, If I want, I can also modify these. If I had paid subscribers, I could include them in both. In this case, if I don't include paid subscribers, if they are paid and logged in, they would not see it. So if you do have content that you want all of your subscribers to see, you want to select both and both. If I had a segment, we'll get into what segmentation means, but say I had an audience, a subset of my list that I didn't want to be able to get the email, I can go in here and I can either include specific segments of the audience or exclude specific recipients from this. And then I can choose paywalls are paywalls that we have to encourage users to sign up. It says, hey, this content is paid content. You have to upgrade your account in order to see the content. If I want that to show up on paid portions, I can select that here. There's obviously these little calls to action around managing the segments and managing the tiers. We will get into that further down the road. But now I've selected my audience. So right now it's going to email and web. If I only wanted to post to email, I would unclick this web audience. And so now it says publish to email only. If I undid this audience, it would say, and did this one, publish to web only. But because this would be a regular post, I want the newsletter to go to everyone. I'm going to select web and email. From here, I'm going to hit next. And this is where we're going to set the email specific settings. So as we said before, subject line, preview text, these are going to be pulled from the title and subtitle. In this case, I don't need to change them, but if I wanted to, I could. If I wanted to A/B test, I can select the A/B test button and then enter, this is a new trend. So it's going to test for 60 minutes with 10% of my list, and then whatever winning variant, which means whichever one was opened more, it's going to send the other 90% of my list the winning version. So it can be a great way to optimize and do some subject line testing. From here, you might have noticed in the preview that we have these social share links and we have this author right here. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to show either one of those. If it's a newsletter and you're talking to your audience, maybe you don't want to include those. So what we can do is we can actually uncheck those. And if I wanted to hide the author from the email, I can hide that there as well. So if we go to email and we go to mobile or desktop, you can see that now I've removed those social share links. I've also removed the author little byline from here. So go back to the email settings. We're good here. Web specific settings, we can change the slug. So if you're into SEO and you really want to get specific, we could do cardigan fashion. It could be a name here. This is the thumbnail of the post. It's going to pull from the post by default. But if you wanted to set a thumbnail for the web version that's different than the one for then different from the actual post itself, you could do that here. Advanced email capture, this is going to be the pop-up or the gate that shows up on site. On our plans, you can set so that when a user comes to the web version of your site, if they scroll like halfway down the page, there's going to be a pop-up that says, hey, are you enjoying the content? You may want to subscribe to our newsletter. In that case, that would be the pop-up version. There's other versions where they can't read anything. When they arrive on the site, they just basically get a gate that says, you must be a subscriber to read this content. Both have pros and cons. We're not going to go into those today, but it's a device for growth that if you have content that is very desired, you can add some of those gates that can collect subscribers from readers who may not yet be subscribed. If they are already subscribed, they're going to automatically pass through. They're not even going to be shown the gates. It'll just bypass them. If you want to take advantage of our features to turn the written content into an audio version using our 11 Labs integration, you can click this. And so this is going to take all of the web content. You can choose a voice. You can even choose my voice if you're enjoying this webinar. And this is going to take all of your content and add a link to the top of your newsletter where the users can click play, and it's going to play an audio version read in a very almost indistinguishable human voice in case somebody's like on the go or something like that. They can listen to your content rather than read it. Lastly, going back to the SEO folks here, if you really want to get granular and change the meta title, meta description, you want to customize the way it's going to look on social media like Facebook and LinkedIn and X, you can come in here and you can change the way that it's going to show up when users share your content to these different social media platforms. And then lastly, a little bit more advanced, say you're creating content that's supposed to go out, you only want the link and you want to send it to very specific people, you don't want it to show up on your website. You can actually check this button to not have it show up on the feed. It's like a hidden post or a private post. And then similarly, you can also feature it so that when we talk about our featuring settings and like how featured settings show up, this is going to be highlighted and prioritized at the very top of your feed. Lastly, going to review. This is the very last step here. You're going to be able to review who you are going to send it to, the name and post title and details, the A/B test details, and you're ready to go. So if the preview and everything looks good, you can do that. I would do recommend that there's two things you can do with these other preview settings from this menu. If you wanted to, for example, if you're starting a newsletter and you want to send it to your mom and you're like, hey mom, what do you think? And obviously she's going to say it's great, but maybe you have a mom that's a little bit more critically minded and she's going to actually give you good feedback. You could send this draft link, which is it's not going to publish the post anywhere, but it's going to let people you send the link to actually review your post ahead of time before you publish it. The other way to do something like this is to send a test email where you can enter the account email or the email of anybody else here. And then you can simulate a subscriber if you have that custom content in there. And then you can send a test email. So it's a very typical functionality, but you can send that so that people can review it before it goes out for real. But yeah, say we're ready to send it. We're going to hit schedule. Just hitting schedule is not going to send it. I can hit a bunch. It's not going to accidentally send. I can schedule it for a specific time and day. So just do 10 or what's 11, right? We can actually also open up this calendar for a nice easy look. So I want to publish it tomorrow at 9 a.m. And because I'm in Eastern Standard Time, it detects that and it's going to tell me how long it's going to publish from now and where it's going to publish. So if I hit publish then, it's going to publish and we're good to go. Because I scheduled it, it's not live quite yet. It's just scheduled and would go out tomorrow at 9:28 a.m. We're going to hit archive there. So from there, where are we at? Let's see. So we just wrote our first post, send our first post. We're moving on to newsletter settings. So that's the crash course. That's really the meat and potatoes of what most people, when they start a newsletter, it's okay, how do I write a newsletter? How do I send it? That's like the essentials. So from here, we're going to get into a little bit more of the technical stuff under the hood. That's going to be really helpful when you're first getting started. So if I go to the settings, I'm going to be open up this screen. It's going to look very similar. I have more publications in here than you will most likely, but essentially it's going to show your newsletter with this menu. And then down here, we're going to have overview, team, billing and plan, and API. So starting out in the general info, this is where you can set a lot of this stuff about the actual publication itself. When we say publication, we mean newsletter. In our parlance, a publication is just the umbrella that encapsulates the newsletter as well as the web experience. So it's the entire media brand that you are building with this specific workspace or with this specific experience. We refer to workspaces as the organization that owns a publication. So a workspace, which is what gets created when you create an account, you can have up to 3 publications within your workspace as a free user. So that means you could start one newsletter, you could start this other newsletter, and you could start this third newsletter. Each newsletter is going to be totally separate from the others. None of the details or styling or anything is going to overlap. And you can, as you can see, jump in here and change all of the settings independently. The only settings that are going to be shared are the workspace settings down here. So it's going to be your workspace name, address. It's going to show you a list of your publications, team settings, who's invited, who can make changes. Be very granular permissions, and we're actually getting a ton more next week. Don't tell anyone I said that, but that's one of our big launches next week. But you could say, okay, I want somebody to have full access to everything, or I say only want them to have access to a specific publication. Billing and plan, this is where you're going to upgrade or downgrade or move tiers and all that good stuff. And then if you're integrating beehiiv across your entire tech stack, in here is the API options. API settings are set at the workspace level. So if you have 5 accounts, you'd go in here for your workspace, create an API key, and then you'd grab the specific publication ID as appropriate from here. So this is a little bit confusing, not anything we need to deal with right now. Anything that involves these details is pretty well documented and is a little bit more. So moving back here to general info, publication name, description, logo, the default thumbnail. So this is what's going to show up if you don't set a manual thumbnail. Publication tags is just describes your newsletter and helps us with discoverability. The default default language. So if you're making a newsletter in a different language, you can choose from this list. Default time zone, and the default subscribe button text. So it's like when you ask somebody to subscribe, you can obviously customize it, but by default, we have the setting. Cool. Content access. If you want to create a private publication, we do support this. So this would be a newsletter that nobody can see the content to publicly. The only way to see the content is to be invited to be able to see the content. So a lot of companies that use beehiiv for things like investor newsletters, internal newsletters, they don't want any rando just to be able to see all of the content. So they'll make it a private publication and manually invite the people who are supposed to have access. Similarly, say you have a project that's not necessarily needs to be private, but you're not ready to share it with the world yet. You can require subscriber approval. So you can basically let readers request to be able to see the content, but they won't be able to see the content until you approve their subscription. So this is more, if it's like a waitlist type of thing where you want to restrict who can actually see your content, you can do that. UTM analytics, we'll get into this later on, but by default, any link that you add to your newsletter is going to have these UTM parameters attached to all of the links, so that if you're doing tracking and marketing, it makes it very easy to just see the traffic that was sent from your newsletter or your website. Cool. As we get to this email setting, this is going to set up the details around the specific send. So in that preview, you saw the sender name was set up like this. So this is the sender name. The reply to address is the account email. So this is the public facing name. This would be the one that shows up under the hood. This is where we're doing the copyright. You can change this to whatever you want. Say it's not the fit. Say you have a company you're publishing for. You could change it to that company name, address, and then these are going to be the settings in which you configure some of your basic emails. Now, I'm going to walk through how to set up the welcome email as part of an automation, but if you are not on a paid plan, you can configure the welcome email, which is going to be an autoresponder when someone signs up. You can configure that right here. So you can set the subject line, preview text, and then the content, just like the regular editor inside these settings. This means that when somebody subscribes to the newsletter, they're going to get this immediately. It's a great way to welcome them. You can ask them say, hey, thanks so much for signing up. This is what you can expect from the newsletter in the future, and so forth. Whatever, you can ask them, hey, how did you hear about the newsletter? You can get them to reply. We just had a webinar around deliverability on Tuesday. There's a bunch of stuff that a welcome email can help you do as far as deliverability goes. You can say, hey, save this email to your contacts so that in the future, Gmail will place the newsletter where it's supposed to go. Going back, there's two other options that I'm not going to jump into because they're not really very basic features. But if you set up a double opt-in, so it means like somebody subscribes, but then they have to open their email and then click the confirm button. You can customize that email here and turn it on right here. And then if you set up double opt-in, you can also set up what we call a smart nudge. So if somebody signs up, you have the opt-in on, they don't open the email, they don't click the link, we're going to wait 48 hours, and then we're going to send them another nudge to say, hey, you subscribe to this newsletter, or do you want to actually subscribe? You have to click here to maintain your subscription. After that point, if they don't subscribe after those two nudges, then they will not subscribe. But that's the whole point of the double opt-in, is to make it so it's only engaged people. If you are running a newsletter elsewhere and you want to import your content, you can do so here. We have a list of other tools that we support imports from. You just select whichever one that you're coming from and you follow the instructions. It's pretty straightforward. We also support, if you're coming from Substack or Ghost, you can also pull in your premium subscribers. I believe we have an automated workflow for this as well. For premium subscriptions, you'd want to set up your premium subscriptions first before you pull them in, which means you will have to upgrade before doing that, which also means you'll have access to our premium support at the time, and they can also walk you through it. We're happy to make sure that if you're nervous about migrating your paid subscribers, we can definitely walk you through it to make sure that there's absolutely no risk, but you can also do it on your own. Subscriber import, similarly, if you're bringing subscribers in from another platform, you can bring them in here. By default, we do have an import limit to prevent spammers. By default, you'll be able to import a number that is much less than 100,000. If for whatever reason you do need to have that import limit bumped, there's a couple ways to do it. One, by verifying your ID through Stripe Identity, we will automatically bump that limit to, I think it's 10,000. If you need more than 10,000, there is a way to open this request form to raise it beyond there. Usually not that commonly needed. Obviously, bigger folks, people with bigger lists, I should say, may need to request this, but once we've approved you, you're good to go. You do just it's the same process. So you just hit new subscriber import. Once you get in here, if it's a very small list, you can copy and paste them. If it's a file that you're bringing from somewhere else, you can import them here and then go from there. If you ever want to export your data, say you want to run data analysis on it, or God forbid, you're leaving the platform and moving somewhere else, we allow you to take all of your data with you. We don't take anything, we don't hold anything back, we don't restrict you. We're confident enough in our platform that we're the right choice for you. And if you're not, then we're not getting in the way of you taking that data. Within the export functionality, you can export just your user list, just the emails, or you can do this full version, which takes a little bit longer, which is all the subscribers with all of their content. And then you can also export all of your posts. And there's certain other platforms. I actually don't know what the list of them are, but other platforms that support importing, you'd be able to import them using this export. Try to say that 10 times fast. Moving forward, a lot of times people want to set up a custom domain. So right now I just have it to be like the fit.beehiiv.com, and my sending domain is the fit@mail.beehiiv.com. If I bought the fit.com, I could also set up my custom domain so that do the fit.com. I won't be able to do this because I don't own it, but if I did, you just go through here, select that. We'll do no redirect. That's just in case you want to do like www. And like the raw non-www version. And then from here, I'm going to set the same thing. I'm going to do, hi. Yeah, that's fine. So by default, this is going to set up no, this is the free beehiiv domain. Yeah. So by default, this is going to set up a sending domain for you. So sending domains, this gets into a little bit of deliverability, but you want to have your mailing going from a different domain as your main website. Just a best practice to make sure that they are totally separate. So by default, we're going to suggest hi@mail.thefit.com. This can be hi@newsletter.thefit.com. Can be really anything as long as it's on this same top level domain. But anyway, either way, once you get through these, it's going to walk you through this setup and it's going to update your DNS settings for you. You're not going to have to jump in and do anything within your host. It's one of the things that we just actually launched a couple weeks ago. Makes it super convenient. So we'll just skip this process because I actually don't own that domain and there's no reason for me to change it. Webhooks, if you want to integrate your newsletter with other platforms, you'll know what these are and what they're used for. So I won't go too deep into that. If you want to learn more about them, we have some documentation, but webhooks are just ways of transferring data from one place to another. And so if you want to take subscribers and when they subscribe, send them to a tool external to beehiiv, you can do it through there. If you're using things like our boosts or the wallet or ads or whatever, you may have to set up a Stripe account. And this is just the interface in which you manage your Stripe connection. And then if you are on our max plan and have access to our RSS feeds feature, you can add RSS feeds for ingestion here. So this means these RSS feeds are going to be available in the editor. And then if you want to create an RSS feed for your publication so that other people can read your content through an RSS reader, by default, this is going to be turned off, and then you can just click one button to generate an RSS feed. Cool. I went through a lot of those pretty quickly, but the goal here is really just give you an overview of what's available in terms of the actual functionality of these. I probably went a little bit too in depth, but we have documentation on how to update all of these specific features. And you should be able to get a head start on that just by knowing what's available to you and how to access it. So next, we're going to go through the newsletter and web design process. I'm going to go through this a little bit more quickly because this can get very in-depth. So if I go to the newsletter builder, I'll close this menu. By default, this is what I was referring to at the very beginning of the call when I said you set up your newsletter design once and then you never really have to touch it again. I want to caveat this by saying that we are making major updates to our design process. So this process is going to likely completely change within the next 5 months, not within the but like in about 5 months. We plan on launching a complete redesign of this to make it much more user-friendly. Not that it's not user-friendly now, we just want to make it much quicker to get people up and running. But for the time being, it's great. So moving in here, you have just options around the background. So this is going to be the background settings. Right now it's white on white, but you can make the background gray on black or something like that. Body text is going to be the details of the content of the styled body text. Header text is going to be these options here. So H1s, H2, H through 6. Header or email header is going to be this top part of the newsletter. So the header and the subtitle. You can also elect to set a logo. So say your newsletter, you want to put a logo at the very top of the newsletter. You can do so through that header setting. Email footer is going to be the settings that dictate what your footer looks like down here. The buttons settings are going to configure these buttons right here. From buttons, we got content breaks. So content breaks are going to be these lines that separate different sections. Images settings are going to dictate these image settings. Lists are found right here and right here. Block variant quotes. So this is going to be one of the variants. Is going to be like a box with content in it, with copy in it. We're going to have this block style quote, which is going to be like the line to the right. And then we have this other one, which is like a big bold quote that's going to be generally centered and like much bigger. Embeds are how we represent links that are dropped into the newsletter. And then tables are how you're going to visualize tables. So essentially, you come in here, you set all of these elements one time. And when you go and you write within the editor itself, you never have to touch those other details until you want to maybe tweak something. You maybe say, hey, I want the header one to be a little bigger, and then you can come in and you can make it bigger. But then it's going to make it bigger for the rest of your experience. And so you don't have to keep doing that. If there are times when you want to make one tweak and maybe it's only going to happen one time, we do have the options to do that within the actual post itself. This is one thing I didn't cover. But if we go into this draft, once we have some content, we actually didn't cover this whole thing. So this is a little menu bar that lets you change a bunch of stuff about the content. So you can make it bold, you can make it italic, you can make it underline, strike through. You can even highlight. So say we want to make it gray. Now it's going to have a little gray highlight. You can add links. You can make it into code. This isn't going to be executable code. It's just going to format it to look like code. Superscript, hyper subscript. You can change it to a header, change it into a bolded list, change it into a quote. And then we have some settings here around size. So you can make this specific body text huge. So this isn't going to make all of your body text huge. It's only going to make this specific stuff huge. And then you can change text color and you can change the font if you wanted to make it a slightly different font one time. And then with our AI tools, you could basically do this stuff here. You can access these AI tools to say, improve my writing, make it shorter, make it longer, translate it into Spanish, revise it, complete the sentence for me. I'm hitting a little bit of writer's block. So moving back, we just covered newsletter design. The next step is going to be the website builder design. So this is another area that's going to be changing in about January when we complete our Dream Builder initiative, which is the integration of our acquisition of the tool TypeDream into beehiiv. So this will change a bit, but until that time comes, we provide a bunch of tools to really change the look and feel of the site. So in the future, you'll be able to rebuild and create absolutely any web experience that you want. If you can imagine it, if a designer can build it, you'll be able to make it. Right now, we have a couple different layouts, and then we allow you to modify the look and feel of some of the layouts, but the layouts are a little bit more rigid comparatively. From here, you can choose the logo and identity, global colors. Right now it's just black and white, but if you have a design system that you're working from, you can change those colors here. Typography is going to be just the fonts of the different headers and whatnot. You can change that here. Radius and shadows, this is going to change the corners and the styling of your logo. And then under these settings, we have global navigation, which is going to be this header bar, the subscribe widget, which is hidden on this screen right now, the post styles, which is going to be this content, and then your global footer, which is down here. If you go to layout, so that's the styling, that's like the look and feel. And then under layout, you can actually come in here and change some of the text and the details of the text itself. So there's two different layers. So styles are going to be global look and feel. Layout is going to be very specific, like text and specific elements. All of these styles and layout, they also can vary by the type of page. So styles are going to stay the same. Layout is going to be different based on the page that you choose here. So your upgrade page, your sign up page, or your home page all have different layout settings. Lastly, in the settings tab, this is where you're going to access other parts about your website. So if you have any pixels for advertising tools, you can drop them here. If you care about SEO, you can implement them here. Social links, these will populate on the footer of your website, and in various other places, you can add them here. We talked about email capture, the pop-ups and the gates. You can set the settings of those in this section. Sign up flow, we're going to get into when we talk about the post signups experience. Comments, if you want to add comments to your posts, you can do that there. Notifications, If you want to enable the mobile app, we actually allow you to deploy a mobile app that's a native experience so that users can actually add your app to their home screen so that they get notifications when you publish a new post, when somebody leaves a comment, etc. Dawn, I said the TypeDream integration is expected to be complete in January. Moving on to security, if you care about GDPR and CCPA and you're under one of those jurisdictions, we have full support to make sure that your site is GDPR and CCPA compliant. And then if you want to allow users to, by default, we have, which I think by default it is turned on now, but if you want to, there's a way to make it so if you want your users to not need to worry about a password and username, you can turn it to magic link sign up. So it's like when they go to sign in, we send them the link. Otherwise, you can have them sign in traditionally. Static pages, these are going to be standalone pages that users can visit from your navigation bar. So if you want to have an authors page, you can turn this on. So then it's going to add an authors page to your menu. If you have multiple publications, you can also have a page that's, hey, join our other newsletters. And I can show you where that exists here. So if I go to the bottom, I have this other newsletter that's here. So I have this newsletters page. Subscriber preferences, when a user accesses their preferences, so like they say they log in, there's a preference center. I want to unsubscribe. I want to set my preferences here. I want to upgrade. I want to downgrade. There's a menu. There's a whole experience around users and like the subscribers' choices and preferences. You can set some of those here. We have a recommendations widget related to boosts, which we'll get into later. If you want to implement that on a third-party site, the settings are here. And if you want to just throw everything out and restart from scratch, you can reset the site theme in this setting. That covers the website and newsletter design. So we go back to here. Now we're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to go through this and we've really covered the basics. So if you're sticking with us now, you've done the hard part. This was really the grindy, like here's where all the settings exist. Here's how you go through and you set up all these little very heady things that are a little bit complicated to get through, but at the end of the day are super important to go over because we have so many different people who are trying to set up so many different experiences that if we only covered some of them, other people are going to be like, I have no idea where to find the other stuff. So thank you for bearing with us. I was looking around to see if I had my water bottle in here, but I think I took it in the other room. So apologies if my voice gets scratchy. But from here on out, we're going to do some really fun stuff and do the stuff that's really tactical. So starting out, we're going to do the welcome email. Like I said at the beginning, the way that I'm showing you guys how to do this is using automations. So we get to cover some of the functionality of automations as well. We already did the other welcome email within the settings that all free users get access to. So if you want to welcome sequence, so it could be yeah. What's up, Tony? Yeah. Okay. So Tony's saying, hey, let's stop for some questions. That's a great call out. We can do some Q&A for the moment. So yeah, DMARC settings. So we set SPF and DChem records for you automatically. Now, I need to verify this, but I think since we deployed that way to automatically set your records, we may also set DMARC as well. So there's a good chance that you actually don't have to touch any of this anymore. However, we'll confirm that in the documentation. At the very least, we can send you documentation on how to set up DMARC if it's not automatically set up for you. I'm like 75% sure that with this new tool that automates the DNS records that we set up, we do DMARC as well. I think that would have been a huge value of that process. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, so we don't have any built-in accessibility checkers, so to speak, but we do follow all of the SEO accessibility best practices and guidelines. So labeling all of the images and buttons and stuff like that. So if people are using screen readers, it's really up to, as far as visual accessibility goes, it's up to the individual to make sure that their site is accessible in a visibility perspective. So there's different checkers. You can Google accessibility checker and just submit a link and it'll tell you, okay, these colors don't have enough contrast. It's usually, I think, the main one. But as far as like the ARIA tags and stuff like that, we deploy all of the appropriate ARIA tags. Required 100%. If you import to the system and you don't have that, it's not an organic list. It was scraped from a website or it was bought from like a data vendor like ZoomInfo, you will be blocked and you will not be allowed on the platform. Every email that comes into the system has to have had affirmative opt-in by the person being subscribed. And we have a bunch of very sophisticated ways of checking that in partnerships with the data tools that ensure that when those imports happen, we have ways of knowing like whether it came from a data vendor and checking on that. Not to say that's the only way we check. There's a ton of different ways, but that's a very fast way to have an account blocked is to import that. All right, so jumping into the fun stuff. Setting up a welcome sequence. So this might be useful if you want to, for example, have more than one autoresponder welcome email. So in this case, we would click create a new automation. It's going to create this experience. And so from here, starting with the overview, so you'd be able to see performance of how your automation and workflow is working. But within this workflow, you're going to start by selecting a trigger. In this case, I selected the trigger for when a new subscriber signs up for the newsletter. And then once you have that trigger set up, there's a bunch of different things you can do in terms of the configuration. You can filter, say, send this to only people who signed up from a specific source, or there's a million different things you can do in here in terms of how you can filter those people. But once you have that sign up or that trigger set up for a welcome email, specifically, we would do a sign up trigger. You can then figure out what that action is. And so in this case, the action is going to immediately send an email. Mine says, welcome to the fit. And from here, if we configure the step, open up the preview, you can see the email that we're sending. And so in this case, I tell them what they can expect. And then I have a link to our subscribe survey. So the subscribe survey is also going to be put into the welcome flow. And we're going to go into a section about setting up the survey, but this is the form of the welcome email. Once that's done, you can save it, activate it, and then now all of your users are going to receive this email when they subscribe. If you wanted to then send an email like 2 days later, you can do time delay. We'll say wait for 2 days. And then save. And then you could send an email again. So this would be another email that you would have to set up. So what it's going to do is they're going to get one when they subscribe, and then 2 days later, they're going to get another one. There's so much you can do with this. You can wait until certain times. So wait until 9 a.m. one of these days. You can separate things. So true, false. Do they have a custom field? So it's have they given you their name? Have they completed X action or whatnot? And you can separate and branch out your groups that way. You can actually also enroll people in other automations from this automation. So if you have another series there's just another automation series, you can say, okay, if they've taken these steps and they go down this branch, now take them out of this automation and enroll them in another one. You can also update their subscription. So you can unenroll people. You can edit their data. You can also send a webhook. So say there's like a process where if they get to a certain point, you want to ping an external tool, you can do that with the webhook functionality. It sounds maybe very broad and very vague right now, and it's got to be because there's just so much you can do with this. It's a very powerful functionality that just to cover all of the different functionality would be a little bit tough in the time that we have today. Cool. So we have that welcome email. The next thing, this is like one of my favorite growth hacks, which is using our polls tool. So under audience, we have this functionality called polls. And I have 2 of them. I'm going to go over them both right now. One of them is going to be the satisfaction survey, and the other one's the one I used in the first post. And so when you set up a poll, basically a very simple interface. You just enter the name, the description, what type of poll. You can do voting or you can do trivia. Trivia would be, hey, what's the 5th planet from the sun? And you know the answer. You're going to ask users that. And if they get the right answer, they're going to be told. If it's the wrong answer, they're going to be told as well. Voting is more, hey, what do you think the outcome of the election tomorrow is going to be? This option or this option. But from here, you can add your choices, type of question, add the choices. And when user clicks the answer, they get taken to a screen where they can either add more context or I can actually just do it real quick. So we go in here. Which grandpa chic are you most likely to try? Cardigan sweaters, tweed jackets. I'm gonna do cardigan sweaters. Takes me here. I have the live results on. So if this was being sent to lots of people, I'd be able to see how other people are responding. Cardigans for life. Cool. And now within my polls section, I can see when I refresh, there should be a response. But because it's me, it might not be the response. Yeah, that's because it's me. It knows that it's me. Bummer. If it wasn't me, it's our verification to make sure that you can't spam your results. But it would say cardigan sweaters 1, and then my notes that I said cardigans for life would show up down here below. Next time for the next presentation, if you want to sit through it again, I will do some test data before we do the call. But yeah, the other way, then this should be in basically every email you send. We recommend including a satisfaction survey in each one that you send out. So you can say, how did you rate today's edition? How did you enjoy today's edition? Loved it, pretty good, okay, not great, straight up disappointed, terrible. And you can also collect that feedback of like why they're saying it. So if they said disappointed and it's like your style is shit, then like I'm going to feel bad, but like at least now I know why they said it was disappointing. And I can say, okay, I need to take that feedback and work harder next time. Or if they say it was great, you're spot on, I'd be like, okay, great. I'm the next fashion mogul. And I'm going to be super happy and continue to create more content like that. Super, super useful. The other way that you can use this is if you have somebody who like consistently says that they love your content, you can set up an automation that basically can then say, hey, like you've rated my newsletter really great. Here's my referral program. If you refer other users that also might love it, I'll give you some rewards. And we'll get into the referral program in a minute. But there's other things you can do that can drive growth. And if that sounds interesting to you, we've done a bunch of different webinars on automation tactics and growth tactics that dive into different aspects of that form of growth. Cool. We set up the feedback poll, set up a subscribe survey. So this is similarly really powerful. I recommend setting up at least one subscribe survey for every newsletter, and specifically set it up so that it's going to be sent to users or shown to users immediately after they subscribe. So in this case, because it's a fashion newsletter, I asked a bunch of questions around individuals' style and basically stuff around this. I can use this to tailor content. If I wanted to have advertisers, I could use it for advertisers. There's like a bunch of different things I can do with it, but it just helps me understand my audience way better and therefore create better content, create much more relevant content. And this should show up any second now. It was just here. I refreshed. There we go. In this case, I asked them, what is their first name? And I save it as a custom field called first name. So now that when they submit this, I can then refer to them in the newsletter as their first name. What is your last name? Similarly, what is your age? What are your primary interests as far as men's fashion is concerned? Save that as a custom field. I save all of these as custom fields so I can then customize and segment my audience later on. What are you interested in? How do you prefer to consume content? Which social media platforms do you use frequently? What challenge do you face when it comes to fashion? And how often do you shop for clothing? How much do you spend on clothing? Which brands do you typically shop for? And do you want to receive exclusive offers from our partners? So with all of these kind of in mind, what we can do is I can open up this. I get the link. I published it so I can get the link. And so when a user subscribes, and this fits in with the subscribe survey and the subscribe flow later on, this is what the user sees. They can go through here and select what they're interested in. There's a bunch of different ways in which you can choose. These don't all have to be like multi-select. It just happened that these were questions that I wanted multi-select for, but you could do a single select, you can do drop downs, you can do true false, you can do a bunch of stuff. But I go through, answer the survey questions. And then if I was a real user and I hit save, all of that data is going to be saved to the subscriber record within the account. So in this case, if I go to audience and go to subscribers and go here, did I actually do any of these? Yeah. Yep. So you'd be able to see the results of that survey right here. So age, name, I filled this out for myself. You can see the options here, media preferences, all of these. Monthly $500. So now I could create segments. I could say, show me all the users whose budget is over. This isn't real. I just did it. I don't spend $500 a month on clothes. But you could basically create a segment to say, show me all of the people who spend over $500 a month on clothes, or show me the people who go shopping for clothes monthly, and say, okay, these people are, you can either send them specific messaging, or you could say, wow, I have a lot of subscribers who are in this kind of very affluent, very active market. These are probably great users that advertisers are going to be excited to reach. Or that's the exact audience that I've been trying to reach. I'm doing a great job in reaching the right people. So it can be really useful too. And this is all going to come together too. So all of these features are building on each other as I can go on. So I'm going to do, how do I recommendations? So the other part here, if we go to growth, we have a recommendations network that's not dissimilar from other platforms like Substack or ConvertKit, where once you start a newsletter, you can view the other newsletters in the space and recommend them. And so we also have a paid version where you can sponsor other newsletters or be sponsored. This is a free version, so you can partner with people, maybe trade recommendations, or if there's just somebody that you really like and admire that you don't necessarily want to get paid for, you just want to do it, you can recommend them here. So for example, I've been trying to convince my girlfriend to start a newsletter for her vintage shop. So I got it started. So I'm recommending her vintage shop when people subscribe. So somebody subscribes to the Fit, I'm going to ask them, and I'll show you this in a few minutes. It's going to show, hey, would you also like to subscribe to Blue Light Vintage and Vacation Voyeur. Vacation Voyeur is another one of the newsletters I've set up. So in this way, you can get recommended by other newsletters and they basically will send you free subscribers, or you can recommend other newsletters in the hopes of, hey, if I've sent you 10 subscribers, then like maybe it's people see that and they say, okay, maybe I should recommend them as well. It's reciprocal. Cool. Oh, newsletters to recommend, set up a referral program. So I don't have the full referral program set up on this account, but I do have enough to show. So in this case, under referral program, what you would basically do by default, you can just say, hey, refer the newsletter, and there's no rewards associated. But if you did want to incentivize users, you can go in here and you can set up a new reward. So in this case, you're going to set up the name. Say I want to give away a sticker when somebody refers one subscriber. So I could do reward name sticker. That's a physical reward versus a promo code or a digital product or a paid subscription gift. You do number of referrals needed, 1. We say, this is the coolest sticker ever, may cause jealousy. And then this would be like the prefix. So it's like maybe 5 referrals away from receiving a sticker. And then I could add an image if I had an image of the sticker. I don't, it's still gonna let me save. So then from here, I can actually compile the email that users are gonna get when they earn that reward. So it's like this, in this case, it would be when a user sends me a 1 referral, they're gonna earn this sticker reward. And this is gonna be the message. So this might be something like, hey, I need you to reply to this email with your address, or I need you to fill out this survey form with your address so I know where to send the sticker. There's other tools that we've partnered with, like Slingshot, which we'll include in the notes, but it's getslingshot.com, I think. It's basically a fulfillment provider where they give you a link, and when the user clicks that link, it takes them to an experience where they input their address, and Slingshot will automatically fulfill that product. But there's other ways you can do this as well, where it's like when someone earns a reward, set off an automation that then collects that information and gets it to you. From there, it's ready to go. Just fill in some stuff here. Test. Okay, continue. And then this last option for autofulfill, if this is something like a digital product or a promo code where the actual gift is in the email itself that you sent a second ago, you can set to autofulfill. This just means when somebody earns it, it's going to automatically mark them as fulfilled. Otherwise, if there's something I have to do, when a user earns it, it's going to put it on a list for me to say, hey, you still have to fulfill this reward for them to actually receive it. In this case, now we have a single referral program milestone set up and we're good to go. Like I said before, there's a bunch of different options here. Physical would be a physical item. A promo code would be a promo code to a store or something like that if you have an e-com shop or something similar. Digital would be a URL, or you're sending them a file or a file attachment or digital access to some sort of tool. And then if you have a paid subscription program, you can actually gift premium. So this is a very popular gift. So it's if you refer 5 users, I'll give you lifetime access to the premium product. Could be one. Cool. So we set up the referral program. Now all of this is going to come together. When we talk about the referral experience, let me show you what this is going to look like. How are we doing on time? We got a few minutes. Okay, cool. If I came to this site and let's say I wanted to subscribe, say I'm already logged in here. Let's create a new window. thefit.beehiiv.com. Cool. And I want to subscribe. I'm going to put my other email in. And I have a bit of a subscribe survey or a subscribe flow set up. Before I hit enter, I'll show you. In my settings, under website builder, under settings, I have sign up flow. So here we have the different details for what you're about to see. So we have the avatar photo. We have a success message. We'll do this. Thanks for signing up. I don't have any boosts set up, but we'll get into that in a minute. But otherwise, they would be set up in a random order. But I do have the rest of these set up. I have a recommendations page set up. I have the survey set up. I have my upgrade page configured. And I have the multi-publication support. The only thing I don't have a custom page. This is going to show up at the very end of, but you could also set up a custom page. So say you have a static page that's, hey, thanks for signing up. Make sure to check your email. For the welcome email I just sent you, there's a gift in there or something like that. You could do that. And that may make more sense in just a few minutes. Coming over back to this one that we're about to subscribe to, I'm a random subscriber. I've never heard of this newsletter before. I saw an ad. I saw a buddy posted on, LinkedIn or Reddit or something. I come to this site. I'm like, great, this looks really cool. I'm trying to get my fashion up. I want to look cool. I'm going to enter my email. So I submit that. Now it's going to show me the recommendations. So the Fit also recommends these newsletters. So remember, I showed you this recommendation screen. I said, I'm recommending my girlfriend's newsletter, and I'm also recommending my other newsletter. So I look like, cool, okay. I actually really want to learn more about about fashion history. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to subscribe to this other newsletter. When I hit subscribe, I'm already subscribed to the Fit, to the original one. What this is going to do is now it's going to also subscribe me as the user to Blue Light Vintage, this other newsletter. So I hit subscribe. Good, I'm good to go. Now, the next step in that subscribe flow was the survey. So now I can say, hey, my name is EJ White. We'll just run through this real quick. Boom, boom. And hopefully your users don't actually do this because you want real data. But you can also encourage in the welcome email and stuff like that to make sure they take it seriously. What brands? They say Brooks Brothers comes to mind immediately. And then, are we interested in including exclusive offers? Yeah, I love exclusive offers. Let's go. So I just did all that. So then I have this thank you message. It's a little long. I used ChatGPT to set this up, so maybe I'd simplify that next go around. But it's just saying thanks so much for taking the time to complete the survey. They helped us craft the newsletter that's unique and stylish. But yeah, we'll hit continue. And so now I also have a premium subscription setup, which we'll go into in the last segment. And so after the subscription, it's one of the perfect times to say, hey, would you like to upgrade for this extra stuff? So right now, by default, it's keep my $0 plan, my free plan. But I can also say, hey, for $4.99 a month, for just that little bit of money, you can get an ad-free experience, weekly exclusive style guides, early access to trends and forecasts, monthly Q&A, 10% discount. That sounds amazing. That sounds like it's worth way more than $4.99. In fact, I'm so sold, I actually want to upgrade for a year and save even more money. I can pay $50 a year, get all of that, plus a 15% discount, and even more. You know what? What does it look like for one time? Wow, $100 one time. I get a lifetime of personal wardrobe outfit, everything else on the other plans. This sounds too good to be true. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to upgrade to lifetime access. If I put my credit card in and pay $99, I am now a lifetime premium member of the Fit. Wouldn't that be a great world? So today, I'm actually just going to continue as a free user. So click basic access, continue as free user, or maybe later. Both of these things are going to take you to the same place, but this one just takes away the money. Continue as free user. So as I mentioned before, when I showed the subscribe flow, this is the multi-pub experience. So because Vacation Voyeur is also owned by the same workspace, I can say, hey, these are more newsletters from the team behind the Fit. It doesn't really matter that I already recommended it in the other screen, but say I didn't recommend my own newsletters, I was only recommending external newsletters. I can then take this opportunity to say, hey, you should also subscribe to these other newsletters. And from there, I'm going to subscribe, and now I'm back to the archive. This is where I was saying you could redirect them to a custom page. So you could set up a custom page that says basically, thank you so much for subscribing. Go check your email. And, I have a question for you. How'd you find my newsletter? Would love for you to respond to that. Go do that, and then come back here and click next. And then you could have a next button that then takes them to the homepage or wherever you want to send them to. So that way, if we recap what just happened, user subscribed. Now I have a new one here. And I think they should have been sent. Yeah, they were sent the welcome sequence, sent the welcome email, delivered the welcome email. I haven't answered any polls yet, but I subscribed. You can see the user event journey here. No billing activity because I haven't subscribed to premium yet. But when we look at the custom fields, all of those answers that I put right here, there's no tags yet because I haven't added any tags. That's a different lesson. We're not going to talk about that today. But I have some quick links. I can see the subscriber management link. So this is, if I put this in, it's going to take me to the subscriber preferences portal. This is their referral link. If they ever reach out and was like, hey, what's my referral link? You can send them that. And then this is going to tell you some details about where the user was subscribed from. Channel is the website. It came in through the website. Source was direct, which means I signed up directly on the site. Device top, desktop, location, New York. And the URL was this page. So you can see where the user signed up. And all of these are accessible from segmentation. So as you get more and more subscribers, you can use this data to slice and dice your audience. And with that said, segmentation, you can come in here, create a segment. Dynamic just means it's going to update over time. Call it test. And then I can come in here and say, show me conditions, show me users who state is New York. So give it a second to load. So go to test, and it's going to be me. It actually should be both. That's embarrassing. Maybe it's because it's the same device. Sometimes the weird things happen when it's me doing demos because it's the same device. Clearly, this one is from New York because we can see in the location, it's also New York. And this one, oh, you know what the issue is? So the acquisition happened here. The actual location comes from click data. So I haven't received or clicked an email yet. So it's just saying it's detecting that this is my IP where I signed up. But until I click an email, it won't basically be accessible in segments. So that was a terrible example to do. I won't do that in the future. But that's the raw, unvarnished experience you get by being part of the first ever journey through beehiiv webinar. So from there, we've covered a little bit of segmentation, post-subscribe experience, analytics. I'm going to skip analytics because we're short on time. We do have a bunch of resources to help this, but if you're planning on setting up ads and whatnot, we do have a bunch of built-in tools to make the ad tracking process really clean. So we actually have built-in event tracking. So like when somebody comes in here and enters their email, we make it incredibly easy. It's 3 steps to basically deploy very kind of advanced tracking with Facebook, with Google Analytics, those sorts of things to make it so that you can really get deep and nail your growth marketing and your growth hacking. The last 3 things that we want to cover are going to be the paid topics. So these are the ones that you're not going to have access to on the free trial, but are incredibly valuable and incredibly powerful. So the first one is going to be the ads platform. So right now, I don't actually have any ads provisioned to my account, but basically, because this is like a test account, but if I did, basically when you subscribe to the premium access, we have a entire stable of AAA name brand advertisers that want to work with you because we have all of these newsletters on our platform. So we work to get the advertisers, and then we basically figure out based on your content tags, based on your audience size and whatnot, your content, which publishers like yourself would make good fits for the different advertisers. So maybe some might work well with HubSpot, others might work with Netflix or BetterHelp. Unfortunately, I know I saw a bunch of international folks in the chat. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get opportunities. I think most of our advertisers focus on the US market, but we can also help with international ones. There's certainly advertisers that do want to reach international brands as well. But with that being said, when you have an ad opportunity, it shows up in here. You can say, hey, this is an advertiser I would like to share with my audience, or this is an audience that this is one I would not want to share. We give you the copy. We give you the date when it needs to run by. We give you the payout. So each of these deals is negotiated individually. So one might be worth $3 per click. Another might be worth $4 CPM, which means for every 1,000 impressions. You can view the incentives, and if it's something that sounds appealing, you can accept it. You choose a date that you want to send it, and then next time you go into your editor on that date, you would go into here, and we have this advertisement widget. You would just select the ad because it's going to send me there, but it would show up in this list, and you would just select that ad from the list, and now you have an ad in your newsletter. And you don't have to worry about copy. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just automatically placed there. The other thing we like to talk about is monetization, or is boosts. So there's 2 sides to the boost marketplace, one for monetizing your newsletter, the other one for growing your newsletter. So on the monetized side, I can view this boost marketplace, and these are all newsletters that are willing to pay me to help grow their newsletters. So I can say this person is willing to pay $2 per subscriber if I send them referred subscribers. So the way this works is that in that post subscribe recommendation screen, so I was subscribed and then there was the pop-up. When I have boosts active, so when I'm recommending other newsletters, those boosts are going to show up at the top of the list, and it's going to say sponsored. It's going to have a little sponsored badge on it. But when a subscriber comes through and when I refer them a subscriber that becomes engaged, I'm going to get paid for all those people. So it's literally the same idea as recommendations, except you're getting paid by people that you may not be as familiar with, or you may not be friends with, that you haven't communicated with directly. So in order to get access to these, I'm going to go in here and say, I have been following BD for years and know my audience is a great fit. You probably want to put more effort into your application, but this is going to go to the publisher. They'll review why you want to work with that person. And then when they approve it, you'll automatically start recommending folks to them and you get paid for that. If you're in a position where you want to grow your newsletter with boosts, where it means you're willing to pay for those users, you basically can go through this experience where you set the amount you're willing to pay, who you're trying to target, quality control, so which geographies you want to target, languages, that sort of thing. And then you can set whether you want it to be emailable or not. So email boost just means that people can add the boost to their email. So if you have an existing audience, the boost can show up in the email itself, which can be pretty lucrative. It's basically overcomes the challenge of like only being able to send boosts to new subscribers. The last thing with the time we have remaining, we'll jump into the last monetization tool, which is paid subscriptions. So one of the most powerful tools here, we're adding more paid tools in the new year with the launch of Dream Builder. So we're going to get really heavily into different types of paid products. So if you are launching, if you have a digital course, you have products that you may deliver digitally, ebooks, coaching, that sort of thing, we're very close to being able to have very robust support for all of those sorts of things. So if I come in here under paid subscriptions, I can see basically the breakdown of my paid subscriptions. There's not a whole lot here now because I actually haven't marketed them or sold them to anyone. But essentially, if we come into this tab for paid tiers, once you're on that paid plan, you can come in here and you can set up all the details around your paid program. So in this case, I have this plan I have one tier. It's elite access. The alternative would be free. If I wanted to create like super elite access, I could do this. So super elite. It's going to be one level up. It's going to be more expensive, but it's going to get even more benefits. So you can describe the description here, choose your currency. You make this a one-time thing, or you can make it a recurring by doing this, or a one-time purchase by selecting this one. Monthly, you can turn on monthly or annual or both. Select your pricing per month, your calls to action, the details here. You can also make a name your price. So it's if you want people to say, hey, give me however much you want, kind of donation-based, you can do that. And then under plan benefits, you'd set the different features that users get from all of the benefits. You can add multiple per each one. And when you're done setting up all of those, you're going to save those tier changes. And what that's going to happen is going to save as a second tier. So now, if you'll recall, we were looking at the upgrades page over here. Once those plans are set up, if I set up a third one called Super Elite, I'd have a third option up here. So you could do Basic, Elite, Super Elite. In this case, this one has all three of these options. Maybe Super Elite would also have monthly, annual, and one-time options. Users can basically choose from all of those different things, pay you from here. And then within the platform, when you go out to send newsletters, when you go out to send your web content, this is calling back very much to like the first 5 minutes of the presentation. We showed how you can do visibility settings for paid subscribers versus free subscribers, send settings for paid versus free. This is how you basically access those users. So you can say, okay, I'm going to send a message only to the people who are super elite or free, what have you. I hope that's clear. I think Tony probably has been working overtime, translating all these crazy manic thoughts that I've been sharing into actual help. That's his use to me most of the time. He's like a translator. But yeah, thank you so much for taking your time today with us. I know I had to rush through some things so that we could finish by 5:30. Is there anything that I can answer, Tony, from the chat? Yeah, do you know the kind of questions they had about? Sorry, I'm talking to Tony guys right now as he's doing Q&A questions. Can you have any specific points about questions they had about the trivia or polls? Got it. How did you go about setting it up? Okay, we can walk through that process real quick. It's straightforward. And I'm going to mute you in between answering. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm getting a ton of feedback from Tony. Maybe that's on me, but okay. So we go to the growth section, or sorry, the audience section, and we go to polls. Say I want to create a new poll. Is Tony the best producer? This is the name of the poll internally. So this doesn't actually have to be a question. So we can actually, I'll change this to be Tony quality test. And they say, did Tony do, is Tony worth keeping around as a producer? I think so. But we're going to make this a voting type poll. And so we'll just leave the redirect URL by default. You can send it to users anywhere after they answer it, but by default, they're going to be just resent back to the same post. We're going to show the results and collect additional feedback. We'll make it a default. This just makes it from bulleted list, numbered list, unstyled. We're just going to make it default. So we're going to drop our question. Is Tony the best producer? Yes, no, unsure. So a voting poll would let us vote on this question to say, what do we want? What's the question? Is he the best? Some people would say yes. Nobody would say no. Maybe some people say unsure. But we could also make this a trivia type quiz where it'd be like, is Tony the best producer? And the whole correct answer is yes. So now if I go through, and we'll do this example in real time, this is probably a really shitty example. As a qualitative question as a trivia is not the best, but it's just, we love Tony so much that it makes sense. So if I go here to poll, I can do Tony quality test. We go to preview. Is Tony the best producer? And we're going to do it on mobile because I think or email. Yeah, we're going to do it on email because I like the way it looks on email more. So is Tony the best producer? We hit yes. And so it's going to say, yes, you are correct. If I said no, you are incorrect. If I said unsure, that's why it's a bad one, because unsure, you can't really be incorrect if you're unsure, but unsure would come up as no as well. Yeah, cool. So the question was, how do you determine image sizing and which images are best for specific places? So there's two parts to that question. One would be the thumbnail. The thumbnail is 1200 by 630. It's the same dimensions as social media posts. We have that recommendation right here. However, for other types of images in the actual editor itself, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you might say a horizontal image might be better than a vertical image just because somebody on the phone is going to scroll a lot if it's a very high vertical image. But in terms of the technical stats, as long as your image is like at least 600 pixels wide and looks good at 600 pixels, you're going to be fine. Because we actually re-render every user when they load the image. We actually load it for their specific device size. So 600 is the kind of the standard for desktop email. And so if it looks good at 600, there's not really a huge chance that it's going to look worse because there's not too many people going to be opening an email with a much bigger resolution than that. And then in fact, most people are going to be opening it on a much smaller device, meaning a mobile device. So we're actually going to use some technology that's going to serve it in a smaller size, but keep all of the detail and everything. So it's still going to look good at that smaller size. So I'd say at least 600, just so it's full width in every case. And then from there, you don't really have to worry about being too heavy or taking too long to load because we serve it dynamically. Yeah, it's a little bit of this is a great use case. I love going through this. We can do this. It's a little bit, probably maybe a little bit more advanced, and the workflow is definitely going to way easier than this with the Type Dream Builder, but I will 100% show you. So we're going to go to the website builder, and before we go to website builder, we're going to go to grow, and we're going to go to audience. In fact, we're going to go to subscribe forms. We're going to create a subscribe form. So we didn't go over this earlier, but subscribe forms are how you can drop an email or collect emails from non-beehiiv sites. So we're going to call this test, and we're going to call it the fit. We can keep all this the same. Keep all that the same. We'll just save this. So if I go here and do view, this is what it's going to look like by default. So what I actually want to do, I actually prefer when I'm doing standalone pages, I want to grab this version, the slim embed. So with the slim embed copied to my clipboard, what I'm going to do is actually go to the newsletter or the website builder. And here I'm going to go to custom pages. So this is how you create those custom standalone pages. So in this case, an external page would be if you wanted to add a third-party website to your navigation bar at the top. Because we want to do this to collect information, we're going to do internal page. So we're going to call this lead gen freebie giveaway. And the first thing we can do is actually go to HTML snippet, and I'm going to drop that iframe in. So if I go to preview, come back. HTML snippet preview. Cool. Now, if I go here, we can actually add, because that's going to be slim embed, it's going to have content above and below it. So let's add a header. Let's do freebie giveaway. We can just grab that and put it right above, and then enter your email to receive. Did I spell that wrong? I before E, except after C. Fuck. Sorry. All right. So here we go. We'll make it we go to visibility. I think we can actually, this is text settings, not visibility settings. So we go to here and we do center and we do center. Great. And then, yeah, we'll do, actually, I'm going to add something here. There's a little bit of HTML. We do margin auto. And that's just going to center it in the middle of the page. I'm going to go here and create this page. We're going to create it. Enter slug freebie giveaway freebie. We'll set this to standalone page, create page. So now if I go to view it, freebie giveaway, enter your email. From here, what you would do is to deliver that, you could either set up the redirect URL. So when I was in the settings for this page, back at the subscribe form page. So if I went back to here, subscribe forms, and then go to edit, you can do one of two things. You can say that when a visitor subscribes out of the form, you can redirect them to an external page. So if you had the asset maybe hosted somewhere, you could redirect the user directly to the page that holds that asset, or directly to the asset itself, or anywhere. Or you can say, thank you, your freebie is on its way. Check your email. So in that case, you'd probably want to connect this to a automation. And so we'll actually rename this real quick. We'll call it freebie. We'll call it freebie and then hit save. So it saves. Cool. And then we could go here. There's a bunch of all these features are interoperable. So we go to automations, create a new automation. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to subscribe real quick so I can show you how users would come in. So if I did one where it's like EJ plus webinar, beehiiv.com, I think this should work. It's taking a second. Okay. I don't know if that'll work because it's a fake email. We've been doing a lot of anti-spam stuff. Okay, cool. It did work. So embed beehiiv referral. See, it's saying embed because it came from the embed form. And then let's see in here, acquisition details, embed name. Yep, that's what I was looking for. So we want to embed name. We called it freebie. So what we can do over here is in the automation section, we'll do a new automation, call it freebie giveaway. And then in the overview, in the workflow, we'll do new trigger, add trigger, signed up. Actually, we might even be able to do this directly from the form. Let's see. It's been a little while. Signed up, email submitted, survey submitted, poll response. Signed up to any form, freebie. So now yeah, perfect. So it's like when somebody signs up to this specific form, it's going to trigger this automation to start. And then we would say send email, and that email would contain the freebie giveaway. I hope that's useful. We do plan on making that experience a little bit more straightforward. Right now, it's like we've built all these different features, and so we've woven together. This one actually works pretty nicely because it's if you just have that subscribe form, you just make it so anybody who subscribes to that subscribe form is going to get the freebie autoresponder email. But the process of standalone pages is one of the areas that's going to get a huge overhaul and facelift when we launch Dream Builder. Yes, Lydia, we will be sending yeah, we got you. Awesome. So I'm going to close us out, and I'm going to mute Tony because I get feedback from him. Okay, so AMA done. Just want to thank everybody for showing up today. The 32 of you who stuck around, that's incredible. I think we capped out at 42, something like that. So like we have almost everybody still here. Thank you from the bottom of my heart so much for sticking around. Would love to get any feedback. If you wanted to email me directly at ej@beehiiv.com, I would love to hear the good, bad, ugly. This was a waste of time. This was incredible. Somewhere in between. You talk too much, you talk too fast, you talk too technically. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I get it all the time. I'm really trying to improve the experience as we do these. We're planning on doing these weekly for all of our new weekly users. And I am going to get better at this, but I hope that it wasn't terrible for you this time. And really appreciate your time and sticking through us and working through it. It's been a pleasure to be able to help you work through this. Yes, the replay will be sent to your email that you signed up for the webinar with. And then from there, it'll be listed online. You'll get the link. Take maybe 2 or 3 days to get posted there. But yeah, we will get it up and running so you guys can check it out. If you need help in the interim, our support documentation is at beehiiv.com/support. There's a lot of different questions there. And the reason why I have this on my screen is because if this was helpful, we actually have an entire publisher community, 4,000 active sending beehiiv publishers, hundreds of messages a day, everything from to how does my email look to does anyone want to do cross recommendations to how are people growing? What social media platforms, what tactics are people using to grow? Hey, feature recommendations. I think that this would be a great feature, all kinds of stuff. Incredibly powerful resource that comes included with every paid beehiiv account. This does not come with a free trial, unfortunately, but if you like what you saw today and this kind of unblocked you, and at the time when you're ready to make that upgrade, we will send you an invite link to the community, can really shortcut your path to success. And obviously the paid plans come with so many powerful features as it comes with paid and everything we covered today. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you once again. Thank you, Tony, for sitting here and fielding those questions. The unsung hero in the background, guardian angel on my shoulder. Appreciate you. And so does everyone else on this call. Have a great night. And until next time, happy publishing.